He ran out of rackets.
He ran out of rackets and he got defaulted from the match.
He was an angry guy, Greg, wasn't he? Let's be honest.
I think players now are becoming more complete. Can't have any weaknesses from the ground.
I need to see footage of you surfing with Guga.
I can't surf.
He's got the surf, you've got the serve.
I had the serve. You know, I think you were about 3 years old at the time, but you have a good excuse. And that's why I think she's put herself on the list to announce she's going to play doubles with Venus in her last ever match. Even now, I have like, what if? And I kind of think, why didn't my team say just go for it? Then I wouldn't have this question because I never won a slam.
Serena comeback at the age of 44. There's rumours she might try and come back. What's your thoughts?
Welcome to episode 1 of Off Court with Greg. I'm Greg Rusedski.
I'm Ashley Neaves.
And I'm a croaky Kevin Palmer.
You're croaky. You're definitely croaky. There's no question about that, Kevin. Can you believe it? We start a podcast and this man loses his voice. But
the journalist can't speak.
We hope it gets better with every episode we do. But the reason we started this podcast is we want to have in-depth conversation about tennis. We want to talk about all the latest stories and have opinions and get into it because, you know, having worked in media for many years, you really can't get a deep dive into it.
I know, and I mean, I spent a day with you last week. We actually hit some balls, and I heard tons of your stories, so I really hope we can eke those out of you in this podcast. I'm not sure how many of them you're willing to share, but hopefully some of them.
Oh, I'm definitely willing to share them for sure, no question about it. You can ask me anything. You can send your questions in. I will not shy away from anything. Amazing.
So the way that we're hoping to run this podcast is we're either going to have a big tennis topic or we're going to have a big guest, and in this episode we've actually got 2 or 3 top 10 players from your trip to the UTS, and I think from our 3 perspectives hopefully we'll give a slightly different spin to other podcasts out there. I'm an avid podcast listener, but I think what you can bring from your former playing days, my days as a coach, and Kevin's days as a journalist, I think we can bring something quite unique to the tennis world.
Yeah, I think we've got 3 different personalities as well. You know, you look at Kevin, you know, with Tennis 365, Sky, ESPN, one of those journalists I really respected because of the fact that he was willing to ask the tough questions, and I think that's always important to do so. And then yourself, you're a performance coach. You obviously want to set up your own academy, so you understand that younger generation, you understand those sort of performance. And myself being a former player, I feel like the players, when you interview them, are quite relaxed.
We saw that last week. The UTS, they loved sitting down with you, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky that we got Andrey Rublev. He's quite a fiery character, but I've known him since he was 16 years old. Casper Ruud, I actually played with his dad on court a few years back. Let's not go back how old I am. I used to play in the last century. And then if you look at the final guy, which we got, was Minaur, who to me has been one of the most improved players this year. And he could be one of those guys who threatens Sinner and Alcaraz in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're listening and you didn't hear what Kevin just said, he said UTS, which is, you probably didn't hear it. But these 2 went to the UTS, the Ultimate Tennis Showdown, an exhibition event last week, and they got to meet some of these guys, and it kind of helped us to form this topic of the off season, which most people don't really get to see what happens behind closed doors. And you asked some questions about what they're getting up to, and so we're going to dive deep into that. The first clip we've got is from Alex de Minaur. Should we take a look?
Sounds good.
For me in particular, I'm into the end of week 1 of my preseason. So as we're playing this tournament, I'll be fully training off the court as well, as if I was in the middle of preseason and not just getting ready.
So what does that entail? So our listeners want to know, like, okay, am I doing cross-court drills? Am I doing points? What am I doing?
So we've got certain areas that are quite technical that I want to work on and improve, and some of those obviously the serve is always a work in progress, and that's something that we're putting many hours into. There's a whole lot of hitting a lot of balls, right? For me, one of the things I want to improve on is to gain a little bit more speed on my average rally ball. As we see nowadays, the Yannicks and the Carlos, their average rally ball, their pace is extremely high. So that's one thing that we're kind of working towards. And then off the court, there's plenty of things. You've got 2 to 3 hours a day in the gym, whether it's prehab, rehab, strength, cardio, some track sessions. There's a whole lot of work off the court, and then on the court you're hitting a whole lot of tennis balls, right? You probably have one session in the morning which is live drilling with another player, and then in the afternoon, you might go back out there and work on specifics with your coach, and that's the more technical stuff, the little tweaks in technique on your serve, the little angles or drills that you want to improve and hit certain types of shots a little bit better. So it's kind of having a whole lot of that, but this is the only chance we get to have a whole bulk of training, so it is a very valuable part of the year.
Also, I looked at your background. I found it fascinating. I believe your dad's Uruguayan descent, your mom's Spanish, your coach is Spanish. It seems like almost all those things are adding up, and you've had that relationship with your coach so long. So do you think that consistency of being there with you in such a young age, taking you to the very nearly top of the men's game, into the top 10 in the world, and also with your ranking where it is at the moment, do you think that continuity was so key to your success?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, the journey we have been through together, from basically since I was 8, 9 years old to where we are right now. So it has been a full circle moment. We've gone from a little kid to juniors to futures, challengers, being on tour, and then cracking into the top 10. And it is very special to be able to do that with the same person. So that is something that I very much cherish, and it's the few times that I get a chance to take a step back, that's what I look back on, and those are the moments that I do cherish, how far we've come. But at the same time, I do think we've got a little bit more to give, so we're gonna strive to keep pushing for more.
Actually, I've always been impressed with Minaur. He's not got huge weapons, but he still competes at the top. I mean, what are your thoughts on what he was saying about off-season?
I mean, for me, as a coach, I'm always interested in the technical changes that these players make during the off-season. I think there's so many parts of their game that they really need to work on. Like he said, there's only a couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks a year where they can really get stuck into this stuff. It's the physical stuff, the technical, the tactical, and the mental. And so what I was interested in there was when Minaur was talking about adding more speed to his normal rally ball. How is he going to do that? Is it going to be a technical change? Is it going to be purely intent, playing with that intent to hit the ball harder? Because he has got a big forehand. You've seen him smack that forehand a few times, but is it more of a mental barrier for him to be able to step up and go for those shots more often? Sometimes it doesn't need to be a technical tweak. Sometimes it could be mental.
Well, I think it's not going to be hugely technical with that forehand because it's really hard to change that. And one thing he did a few years back was changing the string in his racket to get more power. He put natural gut, I believe, in the crosses just to give him a little bit more pop on his serve. I think technically the area he's going to probably work on is the serve. If you look at his serve, his elbow at times is a little bit low, so the consistency isn't where it needs to be. And that'll be the technical thing. And it's just practicing with that tempo and then measuring it. Because if you look at Sinner, I mean, off the forehand and backhand side, he can get up to 80 miles an hour on average, which is just humongous. And if he gets more pop on his serve in the off season and he gets that more pace as well on his ground strokes, then he's one of those guys you think, okay, maybe he can step up against Sinner and Alcaraz because physically he's just as strong as those two.
He's lost all 13 matches against Sinner so far, 13-0.
Well, as the old adage used to be is, you can never beat Vitas Gerulaitis 15 times in a row, and he finally beat Lendl on his 16th time. So there's going to be a time where he can beat Jannik, and if anywhere he could beat him, maybe down under in Australia with the Australian crowd. But what I liked about him is he was very detailed what he wanted to do with his off season. And even though he won the UTS, he was using that to the build-up for the new season. And you can see he knows exactly what he needs to do. And one thing I found about him, which was really fascinating, he's had the same coach throughout his whole career, coming from juniors all the way to the level and getting into the top 10. And you don't have that happen very often.
No, Musetti's another one, isn't he, that's had that long-standing coach. But you're right, it doesn't happen enough. And I think, when you have that team around you that you fully trust, almost like a family member, it makes things much easier. But
we spoke about Emma Raducanu, didn't we, changing her coach all the time? I mean, that it hasn't worked for her, has it?
No, it's about consistency. And I think that's what Minaur has done so well, is that consistency. It's the belief. Also, what's quite interesting is he's got a little bit of Spanish blood, even though he's Australian. And his coach is Spanish. His physical trainer is Spanish. And he's just got such an amazing mentality. And you can see the thought process going through his brain of what he needs to do. And he's tactically astute. To me, he's the most improved player this year in 2025.
Yeah, for sure. And
He's maximising what he's doing as well. He's a smallish guy. He doesn't have a lot of weapons. Very impressive what he's doing, I think.
yeah, I mean, going on, we've got another interview with Rublev, who has a very different approach to his off season, and we'll get there in a second. But first, Greg, I wanted to ask you about your off seasons. Did it look different to what they're doing now, or?
Oh, I remember one of my most important off season was 1992. I know we have to go back a long time for that, but
I was 3 years old.
yeah, God Almighty, you're making me feel old. I am in my 50s now, but everybody would go in the off season to Florida, a place called Saddlebrook. It was the old Harry Hopman Tennis Academy. I was down there because there was this really world famous physical trainer by the name of Pat Echeverry. And then when you have the #1 player in the world and #3 player in the world down there, at the time it was Jim Courier, world #1, Pete Sampras, world #3. And I was about 19 years old, as about 160 in the world, trying to compete with those guys. And it was brutal. You needed a catalog of work before he stepped out there with Pat. It was 2-a-day sessions, as Minaur said. It was sprints. It was medicine ball. We'd go in the afternoon to his house and lift weights and then bike sprints to finish. And it would be 80, 90 degrees in humidity. One of us would be sick by the end of the session. It was so brutal. And, imagine doing that for a week, then adding tennis into the second week, where it was fascinating to be with those two legends of our sport, because Courier was a grinder. So he'd do 2 fitness sessions, 2 tennis sessions. Sampras was more match play, where he would do the grind off court and only 1 session in the afternoon, being more point specific. And I think they knew exactly what they needed, and they kind of motivated me, but I was a little bit arrogant at that time. I should have learned more from those guys, but I wanted to show them that I belonged with them. And to me, that was the impetus for me to break into the next year into the top 100 and then top 50 in the world. So that was huge, those 4 to 6 weeks, spending time with 2 legends, and also realizing how much work I had to put in physically, and then also the improvements I needed to make in my game.
For me, I mean, that sounds like an incredibly powerful experience for you. Would you say that those few weeks of your off season were almost more powerful than the rest of your year on tour?
It's the catalog of work. If you don't do those 4 to 6 weeks well, your season isn't going to be good. So I've had seasons where, I cracked the top 50 after that year. My off season wasn't good in 93, and I dropped all the way from 48 in the world at the end of the season to 113. I learned from my mistake. I jumped back up. And then the big breakthrough year was when I had my off season in Los Angeles. And that's where I made some technical changes, which were huge. I actually had a little bit of a topspin backhand. I know I'm not renowned for it. I worked on my return to serve, and I was in Los Angeles with Brian Teacher. He brought into yoga and flexibility. He brought a new physio into the team. And I went to the Courier mode, 2 sessions on court, but less off court. So only 1 session physically, but a longer session. And it's those little adjustments you have to make to get to the very top. So after that year in LA, I had my best year and had my big breakthrough, getting to 4 in the world, US Open finals, and jumping from 50 to top 10 to top 5 in the world because of doing that so well and taking the time. And so this period is so important for the very, very top players.
Is it much more difficult to change things mid-season?
Oh, it's almost impossible. You don't get the time. And that's where relationship and coaches are so important, because if you're going to make a slight tweak or change during the season, that coach you have to trust 100%. And that's why we talked about de Minaur, that relationship since he was a young kid. He will trust a coach if he says, change this slightly. Or with Vinazzi, who's with Cahill, with Sinner, he sometimes makes technical changes, but the trust has to be immense, and most players don't have those relationships.
And I think going to that question, can you make changes mid-season? I would say there are some changes that you can make, but not very technically, right? So if you think of tactical changes, Sinner has shown that he's trying to add more variety to his game. He's able to do that because he has the skill set to do so. It's not going to impact his results massively, especially if he's trying these things in the earlier rounds of his tournaments. But when it comes to technical things, I mean, we saw Coco trying to make technical changes to her serve just before the US
during
Open,
the US Open, yeah.
Wild, in my opinion.
I mean, it didn't go too well for her, did it?
No.
So if you're doing that when you're coming into a slam, it's almost impossible. And you've got to think you're searching for something that is not there when that's happening. And I look at also Carlos Alcaraz with Juan Carlos Ferreira. Everybody talked what a great year he got to #1, but the impetus was the off season. He changed his serve. It got better. It got faster. He got more of the reverse C, which is meaning getting the hips more into court. He changed his backhand, which Andrey Agassi spotted at the French Open with the way the preparation came out and the way he was taking the racket back. So he's making these little tweaks that ex-players are noticing that really allowed him to get better. And all the players who stay at #1 or reach the top of the game, they're always tweaking at the end of the season because they know they have to get better or they go backwards.
Yeah. So we've got another clip. You guys got to speak to Andrey Rublev, and you'll see from this clip, it was a slightly different approach to de Minaur. But yeah, let's take a look.
For me, it's crazy because now with Marat and new members of the team, they're killing me. They are killing me. I never remember myself any off season that they were killing me that much.
So what's like a normal day? So you've had your 3 weeks holiday right now.
Yeah.
You're off to Dubai for your training camp.
Yeah.
What is a normal day? Is it fitness on court? What is the balance? How many hours are you doing and what are you doing?
It's a fitness in the beginning, 2.5 hours. Then it's a tennis, depending of what Marat wants. Sometimes can be 1.5 hours, 2 hours, where he's killing me. So it's like endurance on court, basically.
So what's the killing drill? So tell me what your killing drill is.
I don't know, no mistake, like this from the baseline.
Okay.
High intensity, 20 balls in a row until you make it.
Really? So it's just physically grinding for you?
Yes, physically, and move my legs also.
Okay.
And
And like, is there also technical work there? Is he working on the second serve with variety? Is he looking in transition, those sorts of games, adding those extra dimensions?
I will. In Dubai, we will do it much more because now we didn't have that much time, so it was more strokes and more just to get a bit of base. We practice on a serve, a bit of technique, but not specifically like spending hours on a serve. More like a bit 30 minutes to give attention. So not yet really okay. We spend 1 hour, 1.5 hours preparing, doing the serves. For the moment, it's gonna come, and so let's see.
Okay, and then also, you look right now at the rivalry. You have Sinner and Alcaraz right now have separated them from the pack. So this off season right now is where you're making that push to get in the mix with those guys at majors, I'm assuming.
I would love to, but I mean, for the moment, I'm doing this push for me.
So it's all more about yourself than about them, and just becoming a better player.
Of course, it's always about yourself in the end. Because yes, if I will be better player with myself, obviously, I will win much more matches.
Okay.
So I'll be more competitive.
Slightly different approach there with de Minaur, mate.
What are you
Well,
saying?
yeah, honestly, mate, I'm trying my best. Okay, a slightly different approach. Yeah. What were your take on that interview?
I mean, as a coach, it's interesting to hear and feel the dynamic difference between, Andrey and Marat compared to Alex and his coach. And clearly Alex had a really good idea of what he wanted to work on and how he wanted to spend his off-season. But it seems like Rublev is kind of letting Marat dictate the situation. And, every coach-player relationship is very, very different. As you've worked with tour players as well. And, for some players, they need that guidance. For others, they want to lead the way.
But the other thing I want to add to that is Marat Safin was his idol growing up.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you've got your hero coaching you. It was kind of like when Marin Cilic won the U.S. Open, had Goran Ivanisevic, who was his hero, coaching him. All of a sudden you say something, you're taking it on right away. And he went to Marat to ask him, can you please help me? And Marat's been out of the game for many, many years now. And he's absolutely perfect for him because the fact that both Russian, on top of that, they can lose it mentally sometimes on court and be hot-headed. But Marat has been #1, has won slams. Rublev has done it all, let's be honest, but he hasn't done it at majors yet. Second serve isn't quite good enough. The willingness to come forward. And as he said, the off-season is going to be key to put those into place. And it's just brutal mentally. Like they're doing drills where you can't miss for 20 balls or a restart. So he's trying to get him upstairs in the mindset better and also tactically more aware. So this next 4 weeks is going to be huge for Rublev, and he's got the right man in his corner. So I'm expecting Rublev to do really well down under to start the year because of this.
Did you want a coach to challenge you, or did you want to be the leader of your team?
Well, I think you need a coach who's going to challenge you. I mean, you look at Djokovic, who's considered the GOAT of our sport. He has a coach all the time. He had Andy Murray with him, you know, who's one of the best players in our country, if not the best British male player in the Open era. What's Andy going to tell Novak? What's Andy Ruddock going to tell Novak? What am I going to tell Ruddock? Just keep going there, John Novak, do your best. Mate, I mean, he knows tennis as well as he can know it, but you bring questions to him. What about doing this? What do you think of that? Let's get some impetus. Let's get some structure around you. So it's bringing those things, because when they get to that level, it comes in between the ears and handling the pressure points and believing you can find a way through it.
And I think that hit the nail on the head when it comes to Andrei's tennis. You know, he has the weapons in his game to challenge these guys. But I think from a mental standpoint, although Marat is so similar to Andrey, it's actually helped him. He's been a lot calmer on court since working with Marat. I have an interesting stat, actually, from a little pop quiz that I did. Which player, and it's pretty obvious the answer to this, but you'll be surprised by the number, which player has smashed the most rackets on the tour? And the three options in this quiz that I got asked were Benoit Paire,
Okay.
Marcos Baghdatis,
Okay.
and Marat Safin. I think we know the answer because of who we're talking about. It was Marat, but how many rackets did he smash in his career, do you think?
150?
Any advancements on that?
I'd probably go a bit higher.
So I guessed 92. It was actually 1,055.
Wow. But have you ever,
But that's 1.5 rackets per match he played.
well, that's a pretty good average. I mean, thank goodness he doesn't pay for those rackets. But here's one for you. This is a little tough question for you now, Ashley. So, which player ran out of rackets in Brighton at the tour event and was defaulted because he didn't have any more tennis rackets left to play with?
You?
Lefty, Wimbledon champion, as a wild card.
How many years ago are we talking? Was I born?
You were born. Goran Ivanisevic.
Yeah.
He didn't. He ran out of rackets.
He ran out of rackets and he got defaulted from the match. He had no more left.
He was an angry guy, Greg, wasn't he? Let's be honest.
I know, but
Yeah.
two great champions. I think you have to have a little bit of madness
Yeah.
to be a genius at tennis, because we look at Federer, he was so smooth, so cool. Djokovic is fiery. Nadal is passionate. Because let's be honest, you have to have a little bit of a screw loose to want to hit millions and millions of tennis balls. It's not a natural thing for most people. It's got to be a passion. And Rublev is one of those guys I love to watch. I saw him as a 16-year-old, and to me, I've never seen a 16-year-old strike the ball as pure as this kid.
We talk about racket smashing. Nick Kyrgios.
Yeah, he's
How
got to be
many
up
has
there.
he done, you know?
Well, he has, and you know, we got a little bit of an interesting discussion about him in our next pod. I believe we're talking about the battle of the sexes, so look forward to that one in episode 2.
It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. But yeah, kind of going back to the coaching perspective of these mental outbursts, I think we as coaches can sometimes be guilty of trying to train players to become robots and try to be well behaved on court. But actually, you need to vent, right? If you think of Andy on court, you know, Andy Murray when he was playing, he needed to let off steam to be able to perform well.
Well, some players use it to lead off steam. Some use it to distract their opponents. John McEnroe was probably the best in the business of distracting. He'd lose it. And I remember Peter Fleming said to me, his doubles partner, he'd bounce the ball 3 times and he'd be locked in the zone. For me, when I'm working with a player, I have a problem if it leaks into the next point. They can get as angry as they want. Sometimes they need that release. They need to break the racket. I'm not suggesting anybody at home break their racket, but meaning you just have to get it out and then get back to work. And if you can do that, it's absolutely fine, because we're human. Who doesn't get angry? It shows somebody's passionate and they want to win. Usually the bad behaved juniors turn out to be pretty good pros. Remember Roger Federer? He used to crack a few rackets. Bjorn Borg, if you go back a few generations, they learn to manage it.
Fans like to see it as well. Alcaraz, where was he? Indian Wells, he smashed a racket and everyone was
Everybody was
delighted.
was in absolute shock. But it's quite interesting because, you know, my hero growing up as a kid was John McEnroe. Loved him. I always watched him because of his passion, his anger,
His leftiness.
Leftiness, serve and volley, genius. I mean, one of the greats of our game. And I think that's what brings you to sport. I know your favorite, I believe, was Andre Agassi.
Yeah, sorry, Greg. But that was more to do with his height. It was a bit more relatable for me to look at his game, and Hewitt as well. Big fan of Hewitt.
Yeah, but how well did Andre strike the ball? He's like the modern tennis player, taking it early, ripping it off both wings. And he brought the power game into a different level after Lendl. And who's your favorite, Kevin?
I'm probably Agassi and Federer. I love Federer.
Well, we'll bring in Agassi for you next time. He can work on this pod instead.
Have you got the scope to get Agassi?
Yeah, I think I do. I know Andrey very well. Andrey's always, I've gotten on really well with Andrey. I have nothing but respect, and it's great to see Andrey back in the game the past year. You know, we saw him at the French Open this year doing some television coverage, which was great. We've seen him around Wimbledon. We've seen him at the US Open. You know, everybody in the industry is so pleased to have Andrey in the game. But you know what I find really funny? He's only the second best tennis player in his family. His wife, Stephanie Graf, I mean, what a career. The Golden Slam, 22 majors. I mean, you've only got 8, and you're the second one in your family with legendary results that Andrey's had.
Their kids have to be good, right?
Well, I think that's why they went into baseball. So his son plays AAA ball, and they've gone into different sports, because imagine the pressure with your mom and dad being Steffi and Andrey.
Amazing. I mean, we've gone a little bit off piste with this chat, but if we kind of go back to off season, you know, we've got a few more weeks before the Australian Open.
Yep.
Who do you two feel are gonna go deep into this tournament?
Well, I think obviously the two you've got to think right now is Sinner, Alcaraz are still separated themselves from the pack. The wild card I like is Ben Shelton. What has he done in the offseason? Has he improved that backhand? Has he improved his court positioning? His dad obviously won 2 ATP Tour titles. He's got a lot of knowledge. Can he correct those little holes in his game? Because he's got a lot of tools. He's broken into the top 8 this year. De Minaur, who we had on, really impressed me at the UTS. His movement was exceptional. His pace on the serve and the forehand's getting up there. It's getting better, no question about it. And he is a nightmare for anybody to play. If you're fractionally off, you're going to be in trouble. From a British perspective, we're hoping Jack Draper can be healthy and start firing, because last year, or this year, 2025, for the first 6 months, he was the 3rd best player on the planet. And Novak Djokovic, what's up with him? You know, can he actually threaten like he did at the beginning of the year down under in Australia before he got injured in the semis? So there's lots of great stories.
I'm going with Jack. I think Jack's got a real chance. If he gets fit, if he can get that arm right, I think Jack Draper's, he can beat the big two when he's at his best.
But the other question, does he have enough fitness and enough court time? That's the problem. So you can do all the gym work you want, but if you listen to everybody we talk about the off season, it's on court hours. For me, you can lift, you can run, you can sprint, but tennis is a totally different game. You have to put that time on the court, especially with the physicality these days. I mean, it's like no player has a weakness. It's not like I saw this thing with Federer and Ruddock, and they were discussing about it. Oh, both their backhands were weaker. Sinner, Alcaraz, you think, which side do I go to? Ironically, in my opinion, you've got to go with pace into their forehand corner. And on top of that, the only guy who pushed Sinner apart from Alcaraz was Grigor Dimitrov, who had a really penetrating slice and put Sinner on the back foot at Wimbledon and was up 2-0 before he had an unfortunate injury.
Had him beat. He was on the way to winning that match.
Yeah.
And who's your pick?
I can't argue with anything you said.
I know, but you got to choose a wild card.
My wild card, one that you haven't mentioned.
One I haven't mentioned.
That's very difficult. So I wanted to say De Minaur. I think, you know, in Australia he's going to be tough to beat. Outside of those guys,
what about Bublik? He's a little wild card. Nobody wants to play.
Just 7 matches in a row is tough, isn't it?
No, not to win, but I mean he could cause a major upset.
Yeah. Zverev is in this mix as well, but not on that surface. You know, I think for the French Open, he's a danger. He's a threat.
Bad year, isn't it?
Again, it's the second serve in the forehand that always slightly lets him down. And I remember listening to another podcast, which I was named nameless, saying, you know, he was the worst number 2. I think that was the most injustice thing you could possibly say to this guy. This guy's won so many Master Series. He's won the ATP Finals twice. He's been to 3 major finals. For me, I mean, that's a hell of a career, and as a world number 2, that's a great accomplishment. So I have nothing but respect for his tennis, and he gets back up. That serious injury against Nadal at the French Open, I mean, to come back from that and then make the semis the following year and to do what he's done is incredible.
He had a
mental
dip this year. He said that to me in June. He just collapsed basically.
Yeah.
He couldn't keep going, and that's a tough thing to happen, isn't it?
Well, it is. But then he went to see Uncle Tony and Rafa at the academy. What a great place to go! Can you imagine? You have a dip. Oh, let me spend some time with Rafael Nadal, hit a few balls, and with him. And it shows you he's still searching out for solutions.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, there's one last little topic that I want to cover in off season, and it's with regards to injury prevention, because I think that's something that lots of players really need to look at. You know, at this day and age where, you know, there are so many weeks of competition, so many players getting injured. I know that the injury prevention technology these days is far different to what you experienced in your off season. What sort of things did you do to prevent injury, or was that not really as important?
No, it was huge. I mean, during my generation, we always had a rub after the end of the match. Brian Teacher got me into yoga, so a lot of flexibility to get my flexibility up. We didn't have the luxury of cryo, which you go into the room, you go there for 3 minutes, and then everything, you get your flexibility up. It was called ice bath. Yep. Horrible. Jumping in hot, cold, back and forth, not enjoyable. We didn't have the hyperbaric chambers, which basically gives you the oxygen in between. And then they had something called Game Ready, which is those compression boots you can put on your body. So all the top guys and the top women tennis players are doing this now. And I believe, you know, there's always a discussion, oh, would the greats have past been as good as this generation? My answer to that is always yes, because the technology for sport gets better and better every year, and so does the game.
And the game has evolved for reasons such as the technology, the balls and the surfaces that are being used. You know, players aren't winning cheap points off the serve so much anymore. You know,
thank God I'm not playing now.
You know, these players are sitting much further back because they can. They're smacking returns. So the game has evolved, but like you say, it's not through a lack of ability in your day. It is through a lack of equipment, I guess.
Well, I think the biggest change is all surfaces are medium slow. Balls have less pressure and basically fluff up more, so everything's slower. And you put guys who are physically stronger, and even women physically stronger, so it's going to make it brutal. But the nice thing for this generation is it wasn't like my generation where by 2021 you have to make a decision. Do I keep playing? Do I go back to school? Do I find a job? Because it takes longer to break through, with a few exceptions, because of the physicality, but you can play a lot later into your mid to late 30s as well. And look at Novak, still going strong at 39 years of age. He's the best 39-year-old I've ever seen in my lifetime in the men's game.
Injury prevention, and they're playing exhibitions. Is that a crazy thing to do?
Well, I think it's called money.
Yeah.
So when someone writes you a big check that's 7 figures, I think I'm going to go play that exhibition at the end of the year. And this is where the debate about the schedule has happened. You know, you look at one guy I respect immensely with his scheduling is Yannick Sinner. He did the Saudi exhibition where I think he got something like 12 million. Good luck to him. Everybody would play. And he won it again. But he hasn't done anything in the offseason. He's taken the Davis Cup off. Alcaraz, on the other hand, he played in Tokyo, got injured in the ATP final, didn't play the Davis Cup, and then he's at an exhibition to start the year. So he's young. He can bounce back. But I think he's got to be a little bit more clever with his scheduling. And one other thing which is tough on the players is the Master Series of 12 days. We've got in 2028 a 10th Master title, and all of a sudden it makes the months go longer. So you could play in 1 month only 2 tournaments if you played Madrid and Rome, when they used to be a lot shorter events. And I think a lot of players would like the shorter events.
Is Carlos risking it injury-wise by doing what he's doing?
I think he is at times, but he's got a great team, a great coach in Juan Carlos Ferrero, and I'm sure Juan Carlos has had a lot of discussions with that, but sometimes you got to keep your player happy.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about these players for quite a few hours. And I think, you know, one of the topics we want to discuss is Yannick and Carlos and, you know, that gap between those two and the players beneath them. And I think, you know, we'll probably make a whole episode on that topic alone. But we've got one more video from the UTS with Patrick Mouratoglou talking about his player, Serena Williams. So we'll play that.
Well, usually you start with fitness. You have a week of only fitness where you can really focus on first coming back to, because you were on holidays, so you basically lost most of your fitness, coming back to a very good level of fitness, but also pushing boundaries and improving. Because the point with the preseason is 2 things, is to get ready for the next season, but also to make improvements, because that's the only time in the year where you have a few weeks back to back when you can really work in depth of something. Because I mean, it's always difficult to look in depth and make changes on your technique or on your fitness, knowing that you have an event in 1 week, a tournament in 1 week or 2 weeks. You know, it's difficult. That time of the year you can. So fitness,
Yeah.
Then you start the second week to bring tennis, but you keep the fitness really strong. So it's more coming back to the tennis, but really focused on the fitness. And after that, of course, you keep the fitness, but you make it a bit lighter because you start to bring your fitness level to the court, because you can do, I mean, hours of fitness. If you don't do fitness on the court, like playing tennis is such a different activity.
Yeah, I agree.
You know how it is?
Yeah.
So you have to, do a lot of tennis fitness on the court and work, of course, on all the specific things that you want to develop during the preseason.
Was there one area where you changed either equipment or some technique for one player that really made a huge difference in their career? Because I know you changed Serena's strings, you've done things, but what was one player, remember, this was a huge moment for them to make this change in the off season?
Well, I think, I mean, I will never think that changing the material things would make a big change. Of course, it counts, but I would say that they are like changing the mindset, not fully, but modifying the mindset in a good way. Of course, can make major changes in a player's career. I think, for example, when a player has mental walls that cannot break, if you find a way to help him break that wall, I mean, what's opening in front of him at that moment is huge, huge. This is like major difference. I think for Serena, we did some technical change that were important, especially with her forehand. She had an incredible serve, probably one of the best.
Yeah, probably the greatest women's serve in the game's history.
I didn't want to say it, but I agree with you. Like you were saying it. Her backhand has always been like an incredible strength. I think her movement also was great. She's never been someone who liked to come to the net much, so she was playing more swing volleys than anything else. But stepping inside the court, applying more spin to the forehand, was extremely flat. I think that was a big change, and I think that also allowed her to win Roland Garros 2 times in 3 years, which is something she had done before only once in 10 years. So I think it helped her also on other surfaces to be able to be as consistent with her forehand when she was with her backhand. I think was a key. She had the power on both sides, no doubt, but I think her backhand has always been incredibly consistent. Was not as true with her forehand, and I think that's really is something we did at the preseason, and it helped a lot.
So just in case you guys are listening to this rather than watching this, we're actually sat on a tennis court at the National Tennis Centre. So you can probably hear the trolley behind me. You might hear some balls being struck as well.
I should have called it on court with Greg instead of off court with Greg, because we actually are on a tennis court here at the National Tennis Centre, and you can hear balls, you can hear trolleys. I mean, they're nearly through the other side, so we should be okay in a second. This is what happens on episode 1, ladies and gentlemen. We promise you we're going to get better.
Fascinating to hear, though, what he did with Serena, and he can even improve. The greatest of all time, he can improve.
What I found interesting was what he said about the mentality. Everything starts with the mind, and I think it's a flexibility of mind that he was trying to say. But I also disagree with him in part because the equipment change he made with her string, she wasn't lacking power, she was lacking control on the clay courts. And by getting that little bit of a string change, it allowed her to have more control. And Albert Costa, who won the French Open in '96, I know for the older generation, they'll know, the younger generation, he was the first to use this string called Lexilon, which everybody uses. And he was the first to use it, and that allowed him to win the French Open. So technological changes and technology changes and string and rackets can make a huge, huge difference. And that's where you try those things out in the off season and make those changes. And I think Serena is flexible at times, and that's what all greats have. I was a little bit too boxed. I was too rigid. And I look at the 3 years I had at the top of the game in the top 10 in the world, I was more flexible. Then injuries came in and you become less flexible. And that's where the coach and the people around you have to say, let's think outside of the box. How do we find solutions? And the greats are always willing to be flexible if they're convinced.
Yeah, mindset is everything. I have to go back though. I might be young, but I think it was Gustavo Kuerten.
No, he started, but he didn't win his first slam. So Albert Costa was. I've had this discussion with Corretja as well. So, I think you were about 3 years old at the time or 2, so you have a good excuse.
I guess I do. Okay, I apologize.
But he's one of the first with Albert to play it, because I played Guga many times. Loveliest guy, I have to say. Lives in Florianopolis, few kids, a wife. invited me to go surfing there, so I'm going to have to take him up on the offer, I think.
I need to see footage of you surfing with Guga.
I can't surf. He surfs amazingly well. I'm useless, but you know, he says I have an open invite if I want to go to Brazil.
He's got the surf, you've got the serve.
Yeah, I had the serve.
A Serena comeback at the age of 44. There's rumours she might try and come back. What's your
Me?
thoughts?
Who's
Serena.
Oh, no. That
You can't hear his voice.
no, I'm sorry, Kevin. Come on, get your voice for episode 2, please.
I'll get it back for next episode.
But I think she might play some doubles.
Okay.
So for me, I think there might be with her sister Venus. If Venus is hanging up the rackets, I think she's gone on the list to say goodbye to sister Venus, who started off the Williams sisters. What an amazing story. I think it's the greatest tennis story ever. You look at the dad, they've made a movie about it, King Richard. The dad said, no, I have not one Michael Jordan, I have 2 Michael Jordans. And what Serena and Venus did coming from Compton is just, you couldn't imagine it. And that's why I think she's put herself on the list to announce she's going to play doubles with Venus in her last ever match. Who knows where it's going to be?
Wimbledon.
Could be Wimbledon,
Yeah.
could be US Open. But boy, would I love to see that. And I hope I'm there in person if it happens. But that's my take on this. Okay.
For those listening, the list is the anti-doping list, right?
Exactly. It is a pain in the backside to be on that list because they can come at any time, 6 a.m., 5 a.m. They take bloods, they take urine. I was just at the tail end of that at the end of my career, and it was a nightmare. And as we saw with Brooksby, he had 3 missed tests, and then he had to serve a ban. So if Serena's putting herself through that, it better be for something that means a lot to her, because nobody in their right mind would go on that list.
No, for sure. So we've been chatting for a while. We've got so much more that we can talk about. Before we sign off, we're going to add 2 segments to these episodes so that the viewers and the listeners know what to expect. The first, we're introducing a stat chat. So I'm going to bring in a
like
crazy
this.
stat for the pod, and we can discuss it quickly.
Okay, but the other thing is, am I allowed to give you a crazy stat?
You can give me a crazy
Okay,
stat.
you start, please.
Okay.
You want to brought it up.
I mean, most of the viewers have probably, listeners have probably heard this stat, but a few weeks ago, the difference between Alcaraz and Sinner's ranking points when comparing it to Zverev, who was world number 3 at the time, was greater than the difference between Zverev and the world number 1,000. What do you think about that?
It just shows you they've separated themselves from the pack. I mean, it is astonishing to have that level of points, because 1,000 you barely have any points. And to have that sort of difference is just phenomenal. And these guys are separating from the pack. That's why we had this discussion about the offseason. Come on, guys, get that offseason in, and women's tennis players a little bit more open. But this is where they've got to make hay, because there's got to be more competition for these guys. What they're doing is phenomenal, but that stat just tells you how far ahead they are. And also, let's not forget, Sinner missed 3 months of the year and still almost ended up world number 1.
Yeah.
Are the chasing pack not good enough? Are they not strong?
Or is the ranking point system, messed up in some way?
No, I don't think it's messed up. I think the ranking system is what it is. I think it works every generation. The ranking, as I say, and as a player says, it doesn't lie. It tells the truth of the story. We know who's the best on the planet. You say, oh, I should be this, I should be that. No. The ranking is right.
Yeah. Awesome. And we are going to talk about the massive chasm that Alcaraz and Sinner have created in a future episode. But one last thing, in each episode, we're going to bring one of you viewers or listeners onto the pod to ask us a question. And this is the first one. So officially, we don't have a question. However, I posted a video today announcing this podcast, had tons and tons of incredible feedback from, your fans, my followers, Kevin Palmer's fans as well. And one of the questions was from a chap that you know, Greg, actually,
Okay.
Ben Jones,
Yes.
who used to coach. And his question was, what was a bigger
coaching.
highlight? Still coaching. Okay, there you go. What has been the bigger highlight in your career, Greg? Was it reaching the final of the US Open and playing the final, or coaching at the Loughborough 25K event?
Well, it's a tough one. I really did enjoy the Loughborough 25K. We had a little bit of the roof leaking on the court. There was one cycle to warm up on. It was cold inside. What was the other option? Because Loughborough sounded great.
It was a little bit warmer, I would imagine. It was in New York.
Okay, at the U.S. Open when getting to the finals. For me, it's kind of funny. I'm in 2 minds about New York, because it was a magical time for me. I was the only sportsman or sportswoman playing sport that week due to the tragic events the Sunday leading up the week before because of Princess Diana's passing in that terrible car crash in Paris. I've been the first British man in something like 60 years to be in a major final. But I have this sort of feeling of what if, because most people didn't know from the quarterfinals onwards, I was actually ill, I was sick. And I was actually offered a steroid shot to play in the finals. Not saying I would have won, but there's a question. I got a little tired in the fourth set. Rafter was better at that stage, pounced, closed the door. And I'm thinking, what if I would have taken that, TUE and pushed through? Would I have made it into a fifth set? Would I lost in four? Would I have won? And that's always stuck in my mind. Even now I have like, what if? And I'm kind of thinking, why didn't my team say just go for it? Then I wouldn't have this question because I never won a slam. So it was a great time for me, but at the same time, the most memorable match was beating Sampras in Paris because he was my training partner in the off season. He used to always make me look bad in practice. He used to beat me in every sprint. He used to beat me in everything we did because he's one of the legends of the sport as he is. And to beat him in a final, shake his hand when he was world #1, going for a record 6 years in a row, and he just said too good. So for me, that was my moment. And second is maybe U.S. Open Finals. And third, just slightly out there, is Loughborough coaching at a 25.
There you go, Ben. So yes, you made the top 3. Congrats. But yeah.
I also wanted to ask you a stat. Sinner this year has done something that no other player has ever done in statistical matter on the ATP Tour. Do you know what that is? Kevin, you can jump in this one as well.
No, I should know.
Nobody has ever done this.
Nobody's ever led these two categories.
His serve is 92% in the.
Yeah. So you're right. So he led serve and return stats. Nobody in the history of the ATP since they've kept this data has won both categories in the same year. Nobody in the history of the sport. And he had 3 months away. So he was best on serve and best on return.
And that is a phenomenal stat because, when you think of the characteristics of these massive servers that hit the spots, they generally don't have great returns.
No, they don't. And you look at those top 10 guys or the top 10 ladies, it's usually, Rafa's usually letting the stat during my generation, and then it's either a Karlovic or a Federer or somebody like that who's leading that one. It's always divided. But for him to do both stats with 3 months away is just phenomenal.
Crazy. I mean, the reason you tend to not be great at both is you are a product of your environment. And if you grow up with a huge serve, you don't tend to be so good from the back of the court just because you haven't had the exposure.
He didn't grow up with a big serve.
No.
He's built the serve, hasn't he?
Yes.
Almost.
Well, he has, but I think players now are becoming more complete. And that's what Sinner and Alcaraz rivalry is about. Drop shot, coming forward. You have to serve well, you have to return well, and you can't have any weaknesses from the ground. So I think these two are just taking it to another level.
Amazing. So, massive thank you, Greg. A massive thank you for your lack of voice, Kevin.
I'm working on it.
That was the first episode of Off Court with Greg. In our next one, we're going to be covering a hot topic, Battle of the Sexes, which is an exhibition match between Aryna Sabalenka and Nick Kyrgios. So you can hear our thoughts on that. We're also going to touch on Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner's chasm that they've created between those two and the rest of the tour. So lots and lots to chat about. And yeah, finally, if you have any questions for us to add into our next episode, let us know over on our Instagram account, Off Court with Greg.
And Kevin promises he's going to actually be able to answer a few questions for you.
Well, maybe episode 3, Greg. Let's build it.
Thank you. See you then.